As a kid playing Mario Kart, would you ever just look at the background beyond the course you're currently racing on and ask yourself, what if I could drive out there? What would I find? How far could I go? Well, I hate to burst your bubble, Tim. You'd fall out of the map and be sent back to the cold, dark reality known as Baby Park on 150cc. Or at least, that's how it used to be. This is Mario Kart World, the 9th, technically 10th, mainline Mario Kart title released alongside the Nintendo Switch 2 in June of 2025. Mario Kart World is a major departure from the usual Mario Kart formula, being a fully interconnected world where all of the tracks exist as a collective rather than being self-contained areas with no real connections outside of a general theme. This concept isn't entirely new for the Mario Kart series. Tracks like Peach Beach and Yoshi Circuit from Double Dash come to mind because you can see the cruise ship from Daisy Cruiser on both tracks. Before I go any further, I just want to clarify that this is not going to be a review of the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware. However, I will have to mention a few things relevant to the system, such as the higher frame rates, resolution, and the Joy-Con 2 controllers. Also, these are just my opinions. You are more than welcome to share your own in the comments, but of course, keep it civil and constructive. Now with housekeeping out of the way, onto the review. For anyone who doesn't know how Mario Kart generally plays, here's a little rundown for you. A standard Mario Kart Grand Prix consists of 4 tracks with 3 laps each, with some exceptions like Baby Park or the original SNES courses from Super Mario Kart. The single player goal for each is to get first place on all 4 of these tracks to earn a 3-star rating for each Grand Prix. Ever since Mario Kart DS came out back in 2005, the formula for the Cups has generally been a mixture of 16 brand new tracks and 16 returning retro tracks, for a total of 32 total racetracks for the average title, save for a little deviation in Mario Kart 8 with the DLC packs, and eventual further deviation when the Booster Course Pass for 8 Deluxe came out on the Switch. Mario Kart World does this formula very differently. There are still the usual 8 Cups with 32 standard tracks, but instead of loading into each course separately, you'll now be tasked with driving there yourself along the highway and on some occasions across homages to Super Mario Kart tracks. This portion of the Grand Prix is often referred to as the intermission tracks, but I personally like to call it the cross-country sprint. Despite the fact that you're driving to a new location, Mario Kart rules will still apply, meaning you have to dodge items being lobbed your way and utilize the environment and the road layout to the best of your abilities to remain ahead of the chaos behind you. The cross-country sprint or intermission tracks are a bit divisive among players. Personally, I think it's a fun change of pace. However, I don't like the fact that it means there is only 1 lap on the new course you spent all that time driving to. It really lessens the experience of a Grand Prix. If they had made it so you had to do 5 laps total with 2 of them being used for driving to the next course, it would have been far better. Or even just an option to play course to course with no intermission driving if you wanted to snap your gameplay experience. As for the core gameplay itself, it's just Mario Kart. There's a lot more going on this time compared to Mario Kart 8. Gone is the zero gravity and underwater racing. Now we have rail grinding, wall riding, and taken directly from Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed, water racing. Literally, it's the exact same game feature. Even the new gliders look the exact same. What the fuck, Nintendo? This makes returning tracks like Warriors Galleon play very differently than they did in Mario Kart 7, since that course was designed around underwater driving. Sky High Sundae, which I'll talk about properly in a bit, is probably my favorite map for showcasing some of the new movement techniques, having plenty of rails to grind on and walls to race along, although it is lacking on the water traversal. Returning from previous Mario Kart games is the trick system. You perform a trick by pressing a drift button as you go off ledges, like you could before, but now you can perform multiple tricks in midair to help guide you to rails or walls depending on the way you hold the control stick, kind of like the trick system in Sonic Generations. Also returning is the drift and drift boost, but with an added twist. Now if you start a drift while holding either back or forward on the control stick, you will build a charged jump, allowing you to gain a small amount of vertical movement to hop onto rails or walls where needed, depending on which way you hold the control stick, either left or right, before you release the jump. The character roster this time around is way more expansive than previous games, but at the same time, it's one of the more boring aspects of the game. The usual suspects are here as expected: Mario, Luigi, Daisy, Peach, Bowser, Wario, Waluigi, Donkey Kong, who's wearing his new design in this game by the way, Rosalina, Pauline, Toad, the babies, you know, the usual suspects. But then we've got a bunch of what I can only describe as glup shittos. A lot of random enemies as playable races in this game, which isn't exactly a bad thing at all. Quite the opposite actually. It's just a little odd they chose characters like the cow from Moo Moo Meadows or even a freaking Goomba over characters like Cappy or Diddy. Actually, the Koopalings instead of the Koopalings. Also, strangely enough, Miis are not playable in this game, which is just really weird to me, as they've been a staple in every Mario Kart game since Wii. They are even playable in the mobile game Mario Kart Tour, so it's a little odd they decided to exclude them this time around. Alongside the character roster is a whole bunch of costumes for multiple characters, and I'm not a big fan of how they handled this system. Unlocking costumes is fine enough by collecting food bags during the cross-country sprints or driving around in free roam, but the way Nintendo laid out the character selection menu for costumes is absolute dog piss. Every costume is its own goddamn box. This just absolutely clutters the UI with way too many pages for a reasonable character select screen. What the hell was wrong with the way Mario Kart 8 did it with the Yoshis and Shy Guys? Like, yeah, you can press X to sort by characters and their costumes, but that feels more like a band-aid fix rather than an actual solution to a problem they needlessly created. I hope they fix this in the future, because I absolutely despise how they handled costume selection in the release version. A lot of items return in this game, and a few have been altered to work differently in the new 24-player format. Here is just a selection of some of the more notable ones, like changes and new ones. Lightning Bolt returns, but now is no longer able to affect every player on the track. It will now only affect players who are directly in front of you, which makes its usage more strategic than before. It also doesn't last nearly as long as it did in previous Mario Kart games, so it's more of a quick slowdown for all players ahead of you, rather than the major dick over like it was in Mario Kart 8 for example. Naturally, the blue shell or spiny shell is back and just as painful as it always has been. Much like in Mario Kart 8, it will hurt players who are in its direct path to the front and absolutely decimate whoever is in first place at the time. The Magic Feather graduates from being a battle mode item only to being just a regular item once again. It's helpful for wall riding, dodging shells when needed, and reaching certain shortcuts that are just that little bit out of the way. Probably the use in the series so far. A variant of the Fire Flower has been added, the Ice Flower. Now instead of just knocking players around like it did in previous games, it hits them with the slowness effect for a few seconds, although not by a massive degree. A new shell variant is here, the Gold Shell. It leads a trail of coins in its wake and explodes into a bunch more coins, useful for building a turtle on a race and knocking around racers who get in its way. Kinda like a weaker blue shell, but it doesn't hurt whoever's in first. The coin block from Tor is here, and now directly gives you coins instead of just spewing them out from the top randomly. Mega Mushroom is back, and much like it was in Mario Kart's Wii and 7, it once again feels like a slightly less useful power star due to how situational it can be. Also returning from Mario Kart Tour is the Hammer. This item will throw a bunch of hammers directly out in front of you and will trip up any racers who are in its direct path. Kind of acting like the banana item, which also returns in this game, but doesn't last for nearly as long as a banana does. Finally is the Kamek Bubble. This changes all races ahead of you into a random enemy and summons a course obstacle which can slow down the opposition ahead of you. This is also how you unlock some of the other races, namely the enemy characters. Item balance this time around is probably the tamest it has ever been, unless you're in the gallows of 5th place and below, where it's saving Ryan's privates but with the Wahoo plumbers rather than soldiers at war. Along with the traditional Grand Prix mode comes a brand new racing mode, fully taking advantage of the new open world format for this game. Knockout Tour. Knockout Tour is what can easily be described as Nintendo's way of making Mario Kart into a battle royale. 24 players go in, and as the tour goes on, there are less and less players at each checkpoint until the final point, where there is 4 players left and you gotta do a full lap on that final course. This mode has its own set of cups, totaling about 8 rallies with 6 tracks per cup, with some locations repeating themselves but not often enough to ruin or lessen the overall experience, mostly taking place along the intermission or cross-country sprint sections with different courses acting as the checkpoints until the very last one. Personally, it's one of my favorite additions to the series due to how chaotic and challenging it can be at times, barely keeping a lead against the other racers who are out for your blood the entire time, and God forbid you fall anywhere below 5th. That's where Mario Kart manages to replicate the feeling of shell shock, quite literally. Free roam mode, another first for the Mario Kart series. The entire map and all the tracks are free to be explored at your own pace without needing to be in time trial or a versus race with a second controller. This mode is great for learning the ropes and practicing the new techniques this game has to offer, especially with the rewind feature ripped directly from Forza Horizon. Across the expansive map, you can find missions to complete, which can range from collect 8 blue coins to drive through blue rings, or even on some occasions, a small impromptu race through the homages to Super Mario Kart. Yes, these can just be boiled down to drive through blue rings again, but it's still cute either way. This is sort of the replacement for a traditional mission mode which has only ever appeared in the DS version to my knowledge, and for many players, such as myself, is one of the best non-racing modes the series had ever produced up to this point. I'll be honest, there's not much point to do all of these because as far as I can tell, it doesn't really unlock anything substantial beyond stickers. All kart and character unlocks can be done in the Knockout Tour and Grand Prix, but these can clue you in how to perform certain advanced moves at the right time, so they're not entirely without purpose. Battle mode returns once again. It is some good casual fun like always. I've personally never been the biggest fan of battle mode in previous Mario Kart entries. I was always more into the standard racing modes, but that doesn't negate how fun the mode can be in a party setting with friends. Only 2 modes are available at the time of making this review, probably dating it by quite a bit if they decide to do DLC or updates, but the returning modes are Balloon Battle and Coin Runners. Surprising they didn't bring back Shine Thief or Renegade Roundup, as that was probably my favorite mode from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's battle mode. The battle arenas this time around aren't anything too special, but they're undeniably better than the Wii U version of Mario Kart 8. They're completely fine and competent, just sections of the open world that were designed around being used as battle arenas. The track design in Mario Kart World is nothing short of fantastic. Every layout, shortcut, and placements of props around the map just ooze creativity from the team behind these games. The Mushroom Cup is the vanilla ice cream of most Mario Kart games, and here is no exception. The later cups are way more interesting. But here's what the first cup consists of. Mario Bros. Circuit is your typical first track from any Mario Kart game, with plenty of opportunities to try some of the new moves available to you, namely this grind rail section, which leads into a wall ride opportunity, which leads into some more follow-up potential with boosts. Crown City is much the same, nothing too crazy, but there's plenty of chances to try out some more of your new moves, especially wall riding along these billboards here, or some light rail grinding against the road dividers. Whistletop Summit has plenty of grind rails to fully learn and master how that mechanic works, with so many opportunities for follow-ups with wall rides and drift boosts. And DK Spaceport, a love letter to the original Donkey Kong arcade game, being one of the few tracks to have more than 8 laps total, and the most experimental movement options in the entire Mushroom Cup, with a full section dedicated to tricking, a section for wall riding, full grind rail bit, and a section which has the most opportunities to get domed out of first place. I won't be going over every track in the game in this video. I'll leave that for a proper tier list video down the line, so here's just a few of my favorites. As mentioned before, Sky High Sunday returns from the Booster Course Pass, which raises more questions than answers given the small snippets of development we know about this game. It is a much better course in this game due to the new movement abilities and that extra legroom the Switch 2 provides, making this course look positively delicious. Toad's Factory. This was one of the courses that was requested to return for a while, simply because it just never happened for the longest time. It was never the most insane or mind-blowing course in Mario Kart Wii, just a really good track with some great music. And the remake here is no exception. They added new pieces to this track that reward you for using the wall ride and rail grind mechanics for some high ground advantages. Bowser's Castle is more unique this time around, feeling even more industrial than ever before. It is the most oppressive looking castle design in Mario Kart in my opinion, and I'm all for it. Gameplay wise, it's one of the more technical courses, benefiting high skilled players more than some of the other courses, with how many grind rail jumps and wall rides can be pulled off on this course. Airship Fortress. This one was special for me personally. Mario Kart DS is one of my favorites in the entire series, and I'm glad to see it's just as cool as it always has been. The core design remains mostly unchanged for the standard Grand Prix, save for the addition of grind rails on multiple sections, which just adds to design more than anything. Choco Mountain. This course has received the most changes aesthetically of any remake course in this game, being more like an extreme sports arena, more in line with Wario Stadium, which also returns in this game. I also appreciate how fresh it feels, despite being a course that's returned multiple times now. Wario's Galleon is the most different from its original counterpart, since that course was designed around underwater driving, which isn't currently available in this game. It's also one of my favorites aesthetically, being dingy and grimy but adventurous at the same time. Plus there's plenty of potential with the grind rails and wall rides you can pull off with this course. And finally, is this game's rendition of Rainbow Road, being a sort of best of, taking different parts from other Rainbow Road courses from the past to make an absolutely gorgeous and fun version of the iconic course. Pieces like the train from the Mario Kart 8 version of N64 Rainbow Road, the space station satellite from Mario Kart 8's version, the section laps like in Mario Kart 7, a water section with the Lumas all around, and one of the most visually stunning rainbow tracks in the franchise's history. Definitely in my top 10 tracks for this game. By far. As for the music for all these tracks, oh my fucking god! Ever since Mario Kart 8, the soundtracks for Mario Kart courses have been some of the most magical sounding compositions Nintendo has ever produced, and World is no exception to this rule. There are so many iconic songs that have been rearranged as background music for this game. Even songs that haven't been in Mario Kart before got rescored to fit with the rest of the songs. I swear that some of these songs would perfectly fit into a Sonic level and nobody would bat an eye until they hear a specific melody. Also, can I just say that this game is absolutely goddamn beautiful to look at? Mario Kart 8 for the longest time had the most gorgeous looking visuals in a Mario Kart game, but World floors it in the stylization department. This is the most detailed looking world in the series and just looks fantastic. Yes, there are some courses that can look a little better in Mario Kart 8 fidelity wise, but World looks better overall due to how consistent the visuals for the entire game are and how solid the art style as a whole is. The first trailer released for this game absolutely floored me due to how gorgeous everything looked, and the animation quality was simply stunning. The characters have so much more personality this time around, with some sublime squash and stretch to their animations, and the way the carts all bend and crunch under specific conditions is such a visual treat for the eyes. Mario Kart World runs beautifully on the Nintendo Switch 2, running at a crisp 1080p in handheld mode at 120 frames per second. I cannot understate how good it feels to have such a gorgeous looking game running at these frame rates in the palm of my hands. This is what dreams are made of. We've come a long way since the GBA in terms of portable Mario Kart. The fact that we can have worlds this detailed on a cartridge this small with noticeably shorter loading times is nothing less than phenomenal. Joy-Con 2s ended up being nicer than I was expecting for long play sessions, especially in the controller grip. The rumble feels a little bit better than it did in Mario Kart 8, which is impressive given how good the HD rumble was on the original Joy-Cons. The standard Pro Controller is still an absolute dream to use for games on the Switch, as everything just feels nice and this game is no exception to that. While I was at it, I decided to try this game with the Nintendo Switch Online exclusive N64 controller for shits and giggles to see how it felt, and ended up liking it more than I would like to admit. It surprisingly works really well as a controller option for Mario Kart, still being able to pull off every move you would need to with a standard controller, even down to camera control with the C buttons. Mario Kart World is an amazing game. Despite some of the flaws and problems I might have with it, I'm glad to see that they haven't lost the ability to deliver a fun game with amazing visuals and great music. Even though it'll be a while before the sales numbers catch up with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because Jesus Christ, I think people go and buy their groceries and another copy of this game while they're at it. I am personally calling Mario Kart World the best Mario Kart game to be released so far, and will be my go-to kart racer for quite a while. Even after Sonic Racing Cross Worlds releases later this year, I'll probably still be playing this instead. I'm going to be giving Mario Kart World a 9.2 out of 10. However, I am not going to ignore the fact that this game can cost up to $119 here in Australia, which can be quite a lot for some players. I personally think the prices are a bit too high for most consumers. Yes, the game is remarkably high quality, and yes, I did just spend
20 minutes and 40 seconds
glazing it, but it is still ridiculous that it costs this much for a mascot kart racer, regardless of how high quality it is. For that reason, I'm going to knock this game down a few points until the prices change, in which case this section will be cut from the video, or not, who knows at this point. My final rating for Mario Kart World is 7.9 out of 10. The game is great, but the prices certainly are not. If you liked this video, please leave a like and tell me what your thoughts on Mario Kart World are. I would love to see what everyone else thinks of this game. If you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. It's totally free, and you can change your mind later if you want to. Have a good one, gamers.